Number the Stars, Chapters 7 and 8. The House by the Sea. Oh, Anne-Marie, Ellen said with awe in her voice. It is beautiful. Anne-Marie looked around and nodded her head in agreement. The house and the meadows that surrounded it were so much a part of her childhood, and a part of her life, that she didn't often look at them with fresh eyes. But now she did, seeing Ellen's pleasure, and it was true, they were beautiful. The little red-footed farmhouse was very old, its chimney crooked and even the small shuttered windows tilted at angles. A bird's nest, wispy with straw, was half hidden in the corner where the roof met the wall above the bedroom window. Nearby, a gnarled tree was still speckled with a few apples now long past ripe. Mamma and Kirsty had gone inside, but Anne-Marie and Ellen ran across the high-grassed meadow through the late wildflowers. Now, from nowhere, a gray kitten appeared and ran beside them, pouncing here and there upon imagined mice, pausing to lick its paws and then darting off again. It pretended to ignore the girls, but looked back often to be certain that they were still there, apparently pleased to have playmates. The meadow had ended at the sea, and the gray water licked there at damp brown grass flattened by the wind and bordered by smooth, heavy stones. I have never been this close to the sea, Ellen said. Of course you have. You have been to the harbor in Copenhagen a million times. Ellen laughed. I mean the real sea. The way it is here, open like this, a whole world of water. Anne-Marie shook her head in amazement. To live in Denmark, a country surrounded by water, and to have never stood at its edge? Your parents are really city people, aren't they? Ellen nodded. My mother is afraid of the ocean, she said, laughing. She says it's too big for her and too cold. The girls sat on a rock and took off their shoes and socks. They tiptoed around the damp stones and let the water touch their feet. It was cold. They giggled and stepped back. Anne-Marie leaned down and picked up a brown leaf that floated back and forth with the movement of the water. Look, she said. This leaf may have come from a tree in Sweden. It could have flown from a tree into the sea and floated all the way across. See over there, she said, pointing. See the land? Way across there? That's Sweden. Ellen cupped one hand over her eyes and looked across the water at the misty shoreline that was another country. It's not so very far, she said. Maybe, Anne-Marie suggested, standing over there, are two girls just our age looking across and saying, That's Denmark. They squinted into the hazy distance as if they might see the Swedish girls standing there and looking back, but it was too far. They only saw the hazy strip of land and two small boats bobbing up and down in the gray ruffles of separating water. I wonder if one of those is your Uncle Henrik's boat, Ellen said. Maybe, I can't tell. They're too far away. Uncle Henrik's boat is named the Ingborg, she told Ellen, for Mamma. Ellen looked around. Does he keep it here? Does he tie it up so that it won't float away? Anne-Marie laughed. Oh, no. In town, at the harbor, there's a big dock and all the fishing boats go and come from there. That's where they unload their fish. You should smell it. At night, they are all there, anchored in the harbor. Anne-Marie, Ellen, Mamma's voice came across the meadow. The girls looked around and saw her waving to them. They turned, picked up their shoes, and began walking towards the house. The kitten, who had settled comfortably on the stony shore, rose immediately and followed them. I took Ellen down to show her the sea, Anne-Marie explained when they reached the place where Mamma waded. She'd never been that close before. We started to wade, but it was too cold. I wish we could come in the summer so we could swim. It's cold even then, Mamma said. She looked around. You didn't see anyone, did you? You didn't talk to anyone? Anne-Marie shook her head. Just the kitten. Ellen had picked it up and it lay purring in her arms as she stroked its small head and talked to it softly. I meant to warn you. You must stay away from the people while we are here. But there's no one around here, Anne-Marie reminded her. Even so, if you see anyone at all, even someone you know, one of Henrik's friends, it is better if you come in the house. It is too difficult, maybe even dangerous, to explain who Ellen is. Ellen looked up and bit her lip. There aren't any soldiers here, too, she asked. Mamma sighed. I'm afraid there are soldiers everywhere, and especially now, This is a bad time. Come in now and help me fix supper. Henrik will be home soon. Watch the step there, it's loose. Do you know what I have done? I found enough apples for applesauce. Even though there is no sugar, the apples are sweet. Henrik will bring home some fish, and there is wood for the fire, so tonight we will be warm and well fed. It is not a bad time, then, Anne Marie told her. Not if there is applesauce. Ellen kissed the kitten's head and let it leap from her arms to the ground. It darted away and disappeared in the tall grass. They followed Mamma into the house. That night, the girls dressed for bed in the small, upstairs bedroom they were sharing. The same bedroom that had been Mamma's when she was a little girl. Across the hall, Kirsty was already asleep in the wide bed that had once belonged to Anne Marie's grandparents. Ellen touched her neck after she put on Anne Marie's flower-sprigged nightgown which Mamma had packed. Where's my necklace? She asked. What did you do with it? I hid it in a safe place, Anne Marie told her. A very secret place where no one will ever find it. And I will keep it there for you until it is safe for you to wear it again. Ellen nodded. Papa gave it to me when I was very small, she explained. She sat down on the edge of the old bed and ran her fingers along the handmade quilt that covered it. The flowers and birds, faded now, had been stitched onto the quilt by Anne Marie's great-grandmother years before. I wish I knew where my parents are, Ellen said in a small voice as she outlined the appliqued birds with her finger. Anne Marie didn't have an answer for her. She patted Ellen's hand and they sat together silently. Through the window they could see a thin, round slice of the moon appear through the clouds against the pale sky. The Scandinavian night was not very dark yet, though soon, when winter came, the night would not only be dark, but very long, night skies beginning in the late afternoon and lasting through the morning. From downstairs they could hear Mamma's voice, and Uncle Henrik's talking, catching up on the news. Mamma missed her brother when she hadn't seen him for a while. Anne Marie knew. They were very close. Mamma always teased him gently for not marrying. She asked him, laughing when they were together, whether he had found a good wife yet, one who would keep his house tidier. Henrik teased back and told Mamma that she would come to Galilee to live again so that he wouldn't have to do all the chores by himself. For a moment, to Anne Marie listening, it seemed like all the earlier times, the happy visits to the farm in the past with the summer daylight extending beyond bedtime, with the children tucked away in the bedrooms and the grown-ups downstairs talking. But there was a difference. In earlier times, she had always overheard laughter. Tonight, there was no laughter at all. Chapter 8. There has been a death. Through the haze of dreams, Anne Marie heard Henrik rise and leave the house, headed for the barn with his milking pail at daybreak. Later, when she woke again, it was morning. She could hear birds calling outside and one of them close by the window in the apple tree. And she could hear Mamma below in the kitchen talking to Kirsty. Ellen was still asleep. The night before, so shortened by the soldiers in the Copenhagen apartment, seemed long ago. Anne Marie rose quietly so that she wouldn't wake her friend. She pulled on her clothes and went down the narrow, curved staircase to find her sister kneeling on the kitchen floor, trying to make the gray kitten drink water from a bowl. Silly, she said. Kittens like milk, not water. I am teaching this one new habits, Kirsty explained importantly, and I have named him Thor, for the god of thunder. Anne Marie burst out laughing. She looked at the tiny kitten, who was shaking his head, irritated at the wet whiskers as Kirsty kept trying to dip his face to the water. God of thunder, Anne Marie said. He looks like he would run and hide if there was a thunderstorm. He has a mother someplace who would comfort him, I imagine, Mamma said. And when he wants milk, he'll find his mamma. Or he could go visit the cow, Kirsty said. Although Uncle Henrik no longer raised crops on the farm as his parents had, he still kept a cow, who munched happily on the meadow grass and gave a little milk each day in return. Now and then he was able to send cheese into Copenhagen to his sister's family. This morning, Anne Marie noticed with delight, Mamma had made oatmeal and there was a pitcher of cream on the table. It was a very long time since she had tasted cream. At home, they had bread and tea every morning. Mamma followed Anne Marie's eyes to the pitcher. Fresh from blossom, she said. Henrik milks her every morning before he leaves for the boat. And, she added, there's butter, too. Usually not even Henrik has butter, but he managed to save a little this time. Save a little from what? Anne-Marie asked, spooning oatmeal into a floured bowl. Don't tell me the soldiers tried to, what's the word? Relocate butter too? She laughed at her own joke. But it wasn't a joke at all, though Mama laughed carefully. They do, she said. They relocate all the farmers' butter right into the stomach of their army. I suppose if they knew Henrik had kept his tiny bit, they would come with guns and march it away down the path. Kirsty joined their laughter as the three of them pictured a mound of frightened butter under military arrest. The kitten darted away when Kirsty's attention was distracted and settled on the windowsill. Suddenly, here in the sunlit kitchen with cream in a pitcher and a bird apple tree beside the door, and out in the cattegat, where Uncle Henrik, surrounded by bright blue sky and water, pulled in his nets filled with shiny silver fish. Suddenly, the specter of guns and grim-faced soldiers seemed nothing more than a ghost story, a joke with which to frighten children in the dark. Ellen appeared in the kitchen doorway, smiling sleepily, and Mamma put another floured bowl of steaming oatmeal on the old wooden table. Cream? Anne-Marie said, gesturing to the pitcher with a grin. All day long, the girls played out of doors under the brilliant clear sky and sun. Anne-Marie took Ellen to the small pasture beyond the barn and introduced her to Blossom, who gave a lazy, rough-textured lick to the palm of Ellen's hand when she extended it timidly. The kitchen scampered about and chased flying insects across the meadow. The girls picked armfuls of wild flowers, dried brown now by the early fall chill, and arranged them in pots and pitchers until the tabletops were crowded with their bouquets. Inside the house, Mama scrubbed and dusted, tisk-tisking at Uncle Henrik's untidy housekeeping. She took the rugs to the clothesline and beat them with a stick, scattering dust into the air. He needs a wife, she said, shaking her head, and attacked the old wooden floors with a broom while the rugs aired. Just look at this, she said, opening the door to the little, used formal living room, and with its old-fashioned furniture. He never dusts. And she cleaned up her cleaning rags. And Kirsty, she added, the god of thunder made a very small rain shower in the corner of the kitchen floor. Keep an eye on him. Late in the afternoon, Uncle Henrik came home. He grinned when he saw the newly cleaned and polished house, the double doors to the living room wide open, the rugs aired, and the windows washed. Henrik, you need a wife, Mama scolded him. Uncle Henrik laughed and joined Mama on the steps near the kitchen door. Why do I need a wife when I have a sister? He asked in a booming voice. Mama sighed, but her eyes were twinkling. And you need to stay home more often to take care of the house. The step is broken and there is a leaking faucet in the kitchen, and Henrik was grinning at her, shaking his head in mock dismay. There are mice in the attic, and my brown sweater has a big moth hole in the sleeve. And if I don't wash the windows soon, they laughed together. Anyway, Mama said, I have opened every window, Henrik, to let the air in the sunlight. Thank goodness it is such a beautiful day. Tomorrow will be a day for fishing, Henrik said, his smile disappearing. Anne-Marie, listening, recognized the odd phrase. Papa had said something like it on the telephone. Is the weather good for fishing, Henrik? Papa had asked. But what did it mean? Henrik went fishing every day, rain or shine. Denmark's fishermen didn't wait for sunny days to take their boats out and throw their nets into the sea. Anne-Marie, silent, sitting with Ellen under the apple tree, watched her uncle. Mama looked at him. The weather is right? She asked. Henrik nodded and looked at the sky. He smelled the air. I will be going back to the boat tonight after supper. We will leave very early in the morning. I will stay on the boat all night. Anne-Marie wondered what it would be like to be on a boat all night, to lie at anchor hearing the sea slap against the sides, to see the stars from your place on the sea. Have you prepared the living room? Uncle Henrik asked suddenly. Mama nodded. It is cleaned and I moved the furniture to make a bit more room. And you saw the flowers, she added. I hadn't thought of it, but the girls picked dried flowers from the meadow. Prepared the living room for what? Anne-Marie asked. Why did you move the furniture? Mama looked at Uncle Henrik. He had reached down for the kitchen, scampering past, and now he held it against his chest and scratched his chin gently. It arched his back with pleasure. Well, girls, he said, it is a sad event, but not too sad, really, because she was very, very old. There has been a death, and tonight your great Aunt Bertie will be resting in the living room, in her casket, before she is buried tomorrow. It is the old custom, you know, for the dead to rest at home for their loved ones, to be with them before burial. Kirsty was listening with a fascinated look. Right here? She asked. A dead person right here? Anne Marie said nothing. She was confused. This was the first she had heard of a death in the family. No one had called Copenhagen to say there had been a death. No one had seemed sad. And, most puzzling of all, she had never heard the name before. Great Aunt Bertie. Surely she would have known if she had a relative by that name. Kirsty might not. Kirsty was little and didn't pay attention to such things, but Anne Marie did. She had always been fascinated by her mother's stories of her own childhood. She remembered the names of all the cousins, the great aunts, the uncles, who had been a tease, who had been a grouch, who had been such a scold that her husband had finally moved away to a different house, though they continued to have dinner together every night. Such wonderful, interesting stories filled with the colorful personalities of her mother's family. And Anne Marie was quiet. And Anne Marie was quite certain, though she said nothing. There was no great Aunt Bertie. She didn't exist.